The wail of sirens pierced the still morning air as Karen's black Lexus SUV lurched to a stop on the hospital's helipad. She flung open the door and strode toward the entrance, coffee in hand, ignoring the shouts of security guards behind her. "Ma'am, you can't park there. That's for emergency helicopters only," one guard yelled, racing to catch up. Karen waved him off dismissively. "I'll just be a minute. I'm picking up my prescription," she snapped, disappearing through the sliding doors. The guards exchanged exasperated looks, knowing they'd have to deal with her irate behavior when she returned. This wasn't the first time Karen had pulled a stunt like this, exploiting her perceived privilege and sense of entitlement. Inside, Karen marched up to the pharmacy counter, cutting in front of a line of patients. "Excuse me, I need my medication right away. I'm in a hurry," she demanded, her tone dripping with impatience. The pharmacist regarded her with a cool stare. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but there are others waiting. I'll have to assist them first." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Do you have any idea who I am?" "I'm on the hospital board." "I deserve priority service," she hissed. "I'm afraid that doesn't matter. Hospital policy is first come, first served. Now please step aside and wait your turn," the pharmacist replied calmly. Fuming, Karen whirled around, her gaze sweeping the crowded lobby. She spotted an empty wheelchair in the corner and strode over, snatching it up. "Hey, that's mine," a voice called out, but Karen ignored the protests of the elderly man who had been using it. Pushing the wheelchair back to the pharmacy counter, Karen planted herself in front of the line. "I need my medication now. Move aside, all of you," she demanded, glaring at the other patients. Several people began to object, their voices rising in indignation. A security guard hurried over, placing a hand on Karen's shoulder. "Ma'am, you need to return that wheelchair and get to the back of the line like everyone else. If you continue to cause a disturbance, I'll have to ask you to leave the premises." Karen's face flushed with rage. "How dare you speak to me that way? Don't you know who I am?" she spat, shoving the guard's hand off her. Suddenly, a stern voice cut through the commotion. "Is there a problem here?" Everyone turned to see an imposing figure striding towards them. Dr. Samantha Wilkins, the hospital's chief of staff. Karen's expression shifted, a veneer of false sweetness spreading across her features. "Dr. Wilkins, thank goodness you're here. These people are refusing to give me my medication, and that guard had the audacity to manhandle me." Dr. Wilkins surveyed the scene, her gaze landing on the wheelchair Karen had commandeered. "I see. And what exactly are you doing with that wheelchair, Mrs. Jensen?" Karen's smile faltered. I was just borrowing it temporarily. I'm in a hurry, you see." "I see." Dr. Wilkins' voice was laced with disapproval. "Well, I suggest you return the wheelchair and wait your turn like everyone else. If you have a medical emergency, please notify the front desk, and they will assist you." Karen opened her mouth to protest, but the stern expression on Dr. Wilkins' face silenced her. Grudgingly, she pushed the wheelchair back towards the elderly man, muttering under her breath. As Karen sulked away, the onlookers murmured amongst themselves, sensing that this was far from the end of the confrontation. Fuming with resentment, Karen stormed out of the hospital, her face flushed with embarrassment and anger. How dare that insufferable Dr. Wilkins humiliate her in front of all those people? She was a respected member of the community, accustomed to receiving preferential treatment. As she reached her car, Karen noticed the two security guards still standing by the helipad, arms crossed. They eyed her warily as she approached. "Ma'am, you can't leave your vehicle parked there. That's a restricted area for emergency use only," one of the guards said sternly. Karen bristled. "I'll leave when I'm good and ready. And don't you dare try to stop me," she spat, yanking open the driver's side door. The guards exchanged a look, clearly debating how to handle the situation. They knew from previous encounters that reasoning with Karen was often futile. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to move your vehicle immediately. If you refuse, we'll have no choice but to call the police," the other guard said, his tone firm. Karen paused, her hand on the door handle. The thought of being arrested in front of everyone was deeply unappealing. Gritting her teeth, she slid behind the wheel and started the engine. "This isn't over," she growled, glaring at the guards as she slowly pulled out of the restricted area. As Karen navigated the hospital's winding driveway, her mind raced. How dare those incompetent fools try to tell her what to do? She was a pillar of the community, a major donor to the hospital. They should be falling over themselves to accommodate her, not treating her like some common criminal. Pulling into the nearest parking lot, Karen whipped out her phone and furiously began tapping out a scathing email to the hospital's board of directors. She would make sure Dr. Wilkins and those arrogant security guards paid for their insolence. Once the email was sent, Karen took a few deep breaths, trying to calm her frayed nerves. She couldn't believe the nerve of those people, undermining her authority like that. It was an outrage, a blatant disrespect for her status and privilege. Well, she would show them. Karen was a force to be reckoned with, and she would not rest until she had extracted her pound of flesh. Reaching into her purse, she pulled out a compact and checked her reflection, smoothing a hand over her perfectly coiffed hair. "Just you wait, Dr. Wilkins," she murmured, a vindictive glint in her eye. "You're about to learn a very painful lesson about who's really in charge around here." With that, Karen started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot, her mind already whirring with schemes to take down her nemesis and reassert her dominance. This was far from over. Over the next few days, Karen's obsession with getting back at Dr. Wilkins only grew stronger. She spent hours poring over hospital bylaws and board member contact information, determined to find a way to undermine the formidable chief of staff. Her first move was to call in a few favors from her wealthy and influential friends on the hospital board. She painted a picture of Dr. Wilkins as an arrogant, power-hungry tyrant who was mistreating patients and staff. It didn't take much to sow the seeds of doubt. "Dr. Wilkins is ruining this hospital's reputation with her high-handed attitude and callous disregard for our donors," Karen lamented to one board member over an expensive lunch. "Something really must be done before she drives away all our major contributors." The board member, a retired businessman with a penchant for golf and brown-nosing, readily agreed. "You're absolutely right, Karen. I'll see what I can do to get the rest of the board on board with putting some pressure on Wilkins. Can't have our premier hospital's image tarnished, now can we?" Satisfied, Karen leaned back in her chair, a cold smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. The first phase of her plan was underway. Next, she set her sights on the hospital's social media presence. Posing as a concerned patient, she began bombarding the hospital's Facebook and Twitter pages with scathing reviews, accusing Dr. Wilkins of everything from negligence to outright cruelty. Absolutely disgraceful treatment at this hospital. The chief of staff is a power-hungry tyrant who cares more about her own ego than the well-being of her patients, one post read. Avoid Street Vincents at all costs unless you want to be subjected to Dr. Wilkins' abusive behavior. The posts quickly gained traction, with dozens of Karen's friends and acquaintances piling on with their own vitriolic comments. Soon, the hospital's social media pages were flooded with negative reviews, and the public relations team was scrambling to contain the damage. As Karen watched the drama unfold, a sense of vindictive satisfaction washed over her. Dr. Wilkins was about to learn a hard lesson in the consequences of crossing her. Meanwhile, in her office, Dr. Wilkins frowned as she scrolled through the barrage of online attacks. She had expected some backlash after her confrontation with Karen, but this level of coordinated vitriol was something else entirely. "This has Karen Jensen's fingerprints all over it," she muttered, rubbing her temples. Clearly, the woman was intent on destroying her reputation by any means necessary. Dr. Wilkins sighed, steeling herself for the battles to come. Little did she know that Karen's scheming was only just beginning. The pressure on Dr. Wilkins began to mount as the onslaught of negative publicity continued. Patients started calling the hospital to voice their concerns, and the board members who were in Karen's pocket began pushing for Dr. Wilkins' resignation. Unwilling to give in to Karen's underhanded tactics, Dr. Wilkins fought back, gathering evidence of the smear campaign and reaching out to the hospital's legal team. But Karen was cunning, covering her tracks and pulling strings behind the scenes to keep the heat on. One day, as Dr. Wilkins was leaving the hospital, she noticed a neatly folded envelope tucked under the windshield wiper of her car. Frowning, she opened it and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "Dear Dr. Wilkins," the note read, "I thought you might be interested to know that one of your nurses, Sarah Johnson, has been diverting opioid medications for her own personal use. You may want to look into that." Dr. Wilkins felt a chill run down her spine. Sarah was one of her most trusted and dedicated nurses, and the thought of her abusing her position was deeply troubling. But the note reeked of manipulation, and Dr. Wilkins couldn't shake the suspicion that this was yet another of Karen's underhanded schemes. Determined to get to the bottom of the matter, Dr. Wilkins called Sarah into her office the next day. The young nurse's face was pale and her hands trembled as she sat down across from the chief of staff. "Sarah, I've received some disturbing information about you diverting opioid medications. Is there anything you'd like to tell me?" Dr. Wilkins asked, her voice calm but firm. Sarah's eyes widened in panic. "Dull you what?" "No, I would never do something like that. I don't know where that information came from, but it's not true," she stammered. Dr. Wilkins studied the nurse's reaction, searching for any signs of deception. "I see. Well, I'll need to look into this further, but I want you to know that I believe you. This sounds like a deliberate attempt to undermine both of us." Sarah's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you, Dr. Wilkins. I swear, I've never taken anything that wasn't prescribed to me. I love my job, and I would never jeopardize that." Dr. Wilkins nodded, her suspicions confirmed. "I understand, Sarah. I'll make sure this is properly investigated, and I'll be keeping a close eye on you in the meantime. Rest assured, I won't let anyone try to use you as a pawn in their twisted games." As Sarah left the office, Dr. Wilkins leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. Karen had clearly stooped to a new low, trying to sabotage her by framing one of her own staff members. It was a bold and dangerous move, and Dr. Wilkins knew she would have to be vigilant if she wanted to protect both herself and her team. With a steely determination, she resolved to put an end to Karen's machinations, no matter what it took. In the days that followed, Dr. Wilkins launched a thorough investigation into the alleged medication diversion, determined to uncover the truth and clear Sarah's name. She reviewed security footage, interviewed staff members, and pored over pharmacy records, but found no evidence to support the anonymous tip. Meanwhile, Karen's campaign of harassment continued unabated. The hospital's social media pages were flooded with scathing reviews, and board members loyal to Karen pressed for Dr. Wilkins' dismissal, citing her mishandling of the medication issue. Frustrated by the relentless attacks, Dr. Wilkins decided to take the fight directly to Karen. She called the woman's cell phone, her voice tense with barely contained anger. "Mrs. Jensen, I know you're behind this smear campaign. Your pathetic attempt to frame one of my nurses has failed, and I won't stand for your continued harassment of this hospital and its staff." Karen's response was laced with feigned innocence. "Why, Dr. Wilkins, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm simply a concerned member of the community voicing my opinions, just like any other citizen." "Cut the act, Karen. We both know you're the one orchestrating this whole mess. Your little anonymous notes, your social media attacks, it's all part of your vendetta against me. Well, I'm not going to let you get away with it." Karen's voice hardened. "I don't know what you think you know, but I can assure you that I'm doing nothing more than expressing my legitimate concerns about the state of this hospital. If you have a problem with that, then perhaps you should consider stepping down." "Not a chance in hell," Dr. Wilkins snapped. "I won't be bullied or intimidated by your underhanded tactics. This ends now, Karen. If you continue to harass my staff or spread these false accusations, I will take legal action. Do you understand?" There was a pregnant pause on the other end of the line. "We'll see about that, Dr. Wilkins. You may think you've won this round, but I can assure you this is far from over." With that, Karen hung up, leaving Dr. Wilkins seething with rage and frustration. She knew the woman would not back down easily, but she was determined to expose her deception and put an end to her relentless campaign of sabotage. Gathering the evidence she had compiled, Dr. Wilkins scheduled an emergency meeting with the hospital's board of directors. It was time to bring Karen's machinations into the light and call her out for the manipulative schemer she truly was. The atmosphere in the boardroom was tense as Dr. Wilkins stood before the assembled members, her expression grim. She had spent the past week meticulously gathering evidence and preparing her case, determined to put an end to Karen's campaign of harassment once and for all. "Thank you all for being here on such short notice," Dr. Wilkins began, her voice steady and authoritative. "I have called this meeting because I have grave concerns about the ongoing attacks against this hospital and its staff, and I believe I know the person responsible." Several board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, casting sidelong glances at Karen, who sat at the far end of the table, her face a mask of feigned indifference. As you all know, over the past few weeks, we've seen a significant increase in negative reviews and public criticism directed at this hospital and its leadership. These attacks have come primarily through our social media channels, and they have been growing increasingly vitriolic in nature. Dr. Wilkins paused, her gaze sweeping the room. "After conducting a thorough investigation, I have compelling evidence that this campaign of harassment and defamation is being orchestrated by one of our own board members, Mrs. Karen Jensen." A collective gasp rippled through the room, and all eyes turned to Karen, who had suddenly gone pale. "This is an outrageous accusation, Dr. Wilkins," she sputtered, her composure slipping. "I have done nothing but voice my legitimate concerns about the way this hospital is being run. How dare you sling such libelous claims against me?" Dr. Wilkins held up a hand, silencing Karen's protests. "I have the evidence to back up my claims, Mrs. Jensen. First, there is the matter of the anonymous note you left on my car, accusing one of my nurses of diverting opioid medications. This was a blatant attempt to undermine my authority and sow discord among my staff." Karen opened her mouth to speak, but Dr. Wilkins continued, her voice growing more forceful. "Furthermore, we have traced the bulk of the negative social media activity back to fake accounts that can be directly linked to you and your associates. The sheer volume and coordinated nature of these attacks make it clear that this is a deliberate and malicious campaign." Several board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their expressions uneasy. Dr. Wilkins could see the growing realization dawning on their faces. "I'm sorry, Karen, but your attempts to manipulate and discredit me have failed. This hospital and its patients deserve better than your petty vendetta. I'm here to ask the board to take immediate action to remove you from your position, effective immediately." The room erupted in a cacophony of voices as the board members erupted into heated discussion. Karen's face was flushed with rage, and she jumped to her feet, slamming her hands on the table. "This is an outrage. I will not stand for this kind of slander and character assassination. I demand a formal investigation, and I will sue this hospital for every penny it's worth." Dr. Wilkins met her gaze unflinchingly. "Go right ahead, Karen. But I can assure you, the truth will come to light, and you will be held accountable for your actions." The battle lines had been drawn, and the stage was set for a showdown that would decide the fate of both the hospital and Karen's place within it. The boardroom erupted into a cacophony of raised voices as the board members debated Dr. Wilkins' allegations against Karen. Some were quick to defend the powerful socialite, while others seemed genuinely disturbed by the mounting evidence of her underhanded tactics. In the midst of the heated exchange, Karen sat seething, her face flushed with rage. How dare Dr. Wilkins make such outrageous claims against her? She was a respected member of the community, not some common criminal. This is completely unacceptable. Karen thundered, slamming her fist on the table. I demand a full investigation into these lightless accusations. Dr. Wilkins is clearly trying to undermine my credibility and position on this board. Several board members nodded in agreement, their expressions sympathetic. But Dr. Wilkins remained unflinching, her gaze unwavering. An investigation is precisely what I'm asking for, Mrs. Jensen. I have the evidence to prove that you've been orchestrating a campaign of harassment and defamation against this hospital. If you have nothing to hide, then you should welcome the opportunity to clear your name. Karen opened her mouth to retort, but before she could speak, the boardroom door burst open and a uniformed police officer strode in. Excuse me, is there a Karen Jensen present? The officer asked, his voice authoritative. All eyes turned to Karen, who suddenly looked pale and uneasy. Ah yes, that's me. What is the meaning of this? The officer approached her, his expression grim. Mrs. Jensen, I'm placing you under arrest for cyberstalking, harassment, and fraud. A collective gasp rippled through the room as the officer began to read Karen her rights. What is the meaning of this? She shrieked, her composure finally shattering. Dr. Wilkins stepped forward, her expression triumphant. It seems your underhanded tactics have finally caught up with you, Mrs. Jensen. You see, as part of my investigation, I uncovered evidence that you have been using stolen identities to create those fake social media accounts and post the negative reviews. And the fraudulent activity. Well, let's just say your charitable donations to the hospital were funded by some very shady sources. Karen's eyes widened in horror as the realization dawned on her. No, this can't be happening. You have no proof of any of this. Oh, but we do, the officer interjected, producing a thick file of documents. We've been building a case against you for months, based on evidence gathered by the hospital's legal team and the police department. Your reign of entitlement and abuse is over, Mrs. Jensen. As the officer led the screaming, struggling Karen out of the boardroom, a stunned silence fell over the room. The board members exchanged uneasy glances, their previous loyalty to Karen now in question. Dr. Wilkins watched the spectacle with a grim sense of satisfaction. She had known all along that Karen's underhanded tactics would eventually catch up with her. Now, with the woman's arrest, the hospital could finally begin to heal and move forward. But deep down, Dr. Wilkins knew that the battle was far from over. Karen's influence and connections ran deep, and she would no doubt fight tooth and nail to clear her name and regain her position on the board. This was only the beginning of a long and arduous war. In the aftermath of Karen's dramatic arrest, the hospital's board of directors was left reeling, their faith in the once powerful socialite shaken to the core. Dr. Wilkins had emerged victorious, but her triumph was tinged with a bittersweet sense of unease. While the police investigation had uncovered overwhelming evidence of Karen's extensive campaign of harassment and fraud, the doctor knew that the battle was far from over. Karen's vast network of wealthy and influential allies would undoubtedly mobilize to challenge the charges and try to undermine the case against her. In the days that followed, the hospital's public relations team worked overtime to repair the damage done to the institution's reputation. They issued a series of statements detailing the investigations that had led to Karen's arrest, emphasizing the hospital's commitment to transparency and accountability. Meanwhile, Dr. Wilkins braced herself for the impending legal onslaught. Karen had already retained a high-powered team of attorneys, and they were waging a fierce public relations war, painting the doctor as a power-hungry tyrant who had orchestrated a malicious vendetta against an innocent philanthropist. The board members, once firmly in Karen's pocket, now found themselves caught in the crossfire. struggling to reconcile the woman they had once admired with the criminal they now knew her to be. Some remained steadfast in their support of Dr. Wilkins, while others wavered, their loyalty shaken by the barrage of accusations and counterclaims. As the legal proceedings dragged on, the hospital found itself in a precarious position, its reputation and financial stability hanging in the balance. Dr. Wilkins knew that she would have to navigate this treacherous landscape with the utmost care, lest Karen's well-connected allies succeed in bringing her down. Yet, despite the challenges that lay ahead, the doctor couldn't help but feel a sense of quiet triumph. She has stood her ground against a formidable adversary, refusing to be cowed by the woman's entitled behavior and manipulative tactics. And in the end, justice had prevailed, at least for now. As she looked out over the bustling hospital, Dr. Wilkins steeled herself for the battles to come. She knew that Karen would not go down without a fight, and that the war between them was far from over. But she was determined to emerge victorious, no matter the cost. For in the end, the hospital, and the patients it served, were what truly mattered. And Dr. Wilkins would do whatever it took to protect them, even if it meant facing down the wrath of a woman who had once been the untouchable queen of the community.